What's up, everybody? This is indeed the E-Man, chilling like a villain, singing like Bob Dylan, keep it on low with some double stuff. Oreos. And man, let me tell you, my guest right now is an actress. She's a singer. She's a performer. And she's been doing it for a minute. I think she's been doing it for over 2 decades. And man, like the Mickey Mouse Club, man, you have no idea. Like that was my jam. And she was on it for all 8 seasons for 6 years. And it's an honor. It's an honor to have her on the show today. I want to just give a big round of sound for Jennifer McGill. What's going on, Jennifer? How you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so honored for your opening, because it never gets old that someone gets excited about you. I think that's awesome. So I'm really glad to be here on your show.
I really appreciate your time. And you're over there in Tennessee. So how's the weather? How are things over there?
I love, I always love it when it rains kind of anywhere. I just love the rain. But here we had a little bit of rain, I think last week. And from my balcony, I get to really see it, and it's very beautiful. But maybe it's brought a little bit of cooler temperatures for a few days.
Thank God.
I joke that I'm a polar bear. You rarely see me in sleeves living my life in the summertime. I just can't. So I'm very excited. Getting cooler again.
Oh my gosh, fall is my favorite season, and it cannot get here soon enough, because I'm gonna tell you, it was one hot summer.
It was. Hot. Yeah, we paid for it. So now let's get on to reaping the benefits of a good cold winter. Let's do that.
Absolutely. I can't. Not too cold. I mean, I like it I love, like, we talk about rain. I love, like, when it rains, I'm like, oh, this is a good time to get a nap in. Woohoo! Because so I'm older now, so I'm like, naps are everything. So but before we get the interview started, though, I want to give a moment of silence for a few people. Of course, Tiffany Hale. I want to give it, and also Tate Lynch. And unfortunately, recently, a good friend of mine back home in Wilson, North Carolina, he was a great guy, passed away. His name was Donnie Boykin Jr. And he passed away, and I was really shocked, because we're about the same age, and I haven't seen him in a long time. But every encounter that we had has always been positive. Hardworking guy, reminds me a lot of myself. And so I just wanted to give a moment of silence for those people.
I'd also like to add one more.
Yes, ma'am.
About a month ago, someone that I used to go to church with, who hired me for some shows and to help write some material in the Christian genre, and whose wife mentored me through the church and all sorts of things. I mean, what a beautiful couple. Mike Kyle passed away about a month ago. And so I would love to add him to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. But all of my interviews, I always love to start off with the childhood, because I think that's a very important foundation, because that's where you build your dreams. So you were born in Texas. Now, before I have to know, I've never been to Texas before, but if I were to go to Texas, and if I were to hop out of an airplane, if I say the stars at night are big and bright, would people be like,
deep in the heart
of Texas?
Rob, what's funny? I just watched a movie, I believe it was from the 70s, called Airplane. Yes. And I think they have that reference in there, that someone said they were in a phone booth and they said, hey, I'm in Texas. And they're like, prove it. And then they did that. And yeah, but that was a movie. But yes, when I was growing up, we had multiple songs that they would teach us in elementary school that were about the spirit of our state. And one of them was Deep in the Heart of Texas. Uh-huh. There was a Texas, Our Texas, that we actually sang along with the Pledge of the Flag, I think, as well. Wow. So yes, we are taught state pride, for sure. We were, when I was a kid.
Now I get that reference from this movie called Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And like
I just saw, that's what it was. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just watched that movie again too. That is absolutely right. That's right. He's talking to Penny.
Dottie,
whatever.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
Not at all. No. Absolutely iconic characters. But yes, Dottie. And he's like, I'm in Texas. And she's like, prove it. Or I don't know, whatever I just watched that. That's hilarious that I watched both. got that wrong.
Yes, I love the movie. Actually, I had the honor. Mark Holton, who played Francis in that movie, I interviewed him on my podcast, and he said he went somewhere. He went to some theater in Texas, and he said it was just a beautiful experience. The food was delicious. Like I said, I've never been to Texas. I always wanted to go.
Right. Texas is amazing. And, you can tell Francis, I'm a big Teen Wolf fan.
Yes.
Part of that movie. So that's where Francis from. I know that's not his name, but that's where I knew Francis from.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love Teen Wolf 1 and 2. We talked about that. It was, oh my gosh, I can talk about that all day. But always, okay, so what was young Jennifer like growing up in Texas?
I'm pretty sure there came a time where I was just a big ham. I was really quiet and small. In the beginning of times, I was always highly imaginative. So I would I was my best playmate. I would you could just put me in a room with a bunch of stuff and I'd be fine. And I fell in love with movies very early. So we would VHS record,
yes.
I think we just put HBO on and record whatever's there. And then we come what movies we captured, kind of that. And I played a lot outside. I remember I was able to sprint down our gravel road barefoot. I was really a outdoor Texas girl. Even had a tan because I was always outside. And then something changed when I started falling in love with pageants around 7 years old. I think I just started exploring my onstage self. And then I just got a lot goofier and cheesier and more uninhibited. In that time when I was interested in performing and making people, influencing people, making people pay attention to me or giving them some joy or some laughter or some tears, depending on what kind of, song I was delivering, etc. So I did start eating up, I guess, stage attention around then. My mother sewed and she was a great arts and crafts person. And so she made most of my costumes with her sewing machine and her glue gun and would just create all the ruffles and then glue all the sequins on. And sometimes she would press rhinestones. It's a similar machine that we don't necessarily see anymore, but you know how buttons have come back where you press a button like merch from the 90s, like it's a button you pin.
Yes.
Your favorite, icon's picture on it and stuff. So it's a much smaller machine that does something very similar for a rhinestone. And you would basically, attach rhinestones by hand, one by one, with this metal clasp that goes around them and pierces the fabric. She would spend hours bedazzling my costumes and my shoes and everything. And so pageants were my sport for about 3 years. And she and sometimes my brother and my dad would come to these contests, but I think I won 48 out of 50 contests in 3 years. It was a lot. There's a lot going on with that. And so I did. I became a ham. And I remember my mother brought me into a recording studio for some reason. I don't remember what we were doing and how old I was, but me and my brother just goofed off and tap danced all around the inside of the recording space. And little did we know that the producer was talking to my mother. And she's nodding and looking at me through the glass. I'm thinking, I'm just nailing it right now. I'm killing it with all this energy. And my brother following along, but the producer was basically saying she needs to calm down. She needs to be a professional. So I remember being this untapped energy of entertainment in the very beginning of discovering what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And my biggest dream was to be like Diana Ross or Whitney Houston. I wanted to be a recording artist because I fell in love with The Wiz, the movie. In my one-digit number, I don't remember when, but I fell in love with The Wiz. Before that, I'd loved Barbra Streisand. And then after that, I was into Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. And and then right after that, I started falling in love with Celine Dion and Mariah Carey. So, I knew that I wanted to do that stuff. And I just didn't know what it was going to look like until the Mickey Mouse Club.
Absolutely. Oh man, there's so much to take in from what you just said, because my mother, she also, her and the sewing machine were like this. And so God bless her soul, she passed away. But one of the things I got from my mother is she would go to Peace Goods, right? And she would just get the scraps. and she would just make these wonderful things, couch covers, curtains, whatever. And like I got that from her, as far not as far as sewing, because I can't do that. But when I'm talking about, it isn't, I could just get this little thing, and I don't need much, but just that little thing, and I can make it expand. You know what I'm saying? Just that, I just need that little bit of hope, and I could just, that's all I need.
Right. It's the manual attention to detail that it takes to do arts and crafts, but then combined with the vision of what can I make out of this? Like, you do have to think outside the box and be very
creative. Absolutely. Wow, that's so great. Well, you kind of answered my question already, my second question, but was there a particular, I mean, aside from those great people that you named, was there a TV show or a movie? You said The Wiz, but was there another TV, like a TV show? This is the 80s, so there's a lot of great TV shows and theme songs. What that made you want to say, like, oh my God, I have to do that. Like, I love the Punky Brewster theme song. That's like one of my favorite theme songs. So like, was there anything else like that inspired you to become an entertainer?
It's funny that you said Punky Brewster, because I wouldn't be able to sing to you the theme song, but that's the show that actually came to mind when you said that, which is funny. Yeah. Apparently we're related, so that's totally great.
Right on.
Yeah. And so we love all the same things. Yeah, I did consume a lot of television and movies. I do remember some of my favorite shows. Yes, Punky Brewster was at the top. Performance-wise, trying to think of, like, it's funny because like you'd think it would pop into my mind if it were that important, it would just pop in there out of nowhere. But yeah, Punky Brewster popped in there. What happened to me was, I mean, I love movies and I love princesses. So, The Little Mermaid, Ariel in the animated original Disney movie, what she did and how she was, and the fact that she sang, and I wanted to be a mermaid, when I was a kid. So there was so much about her that I really loved. I know she wasn't an actual, child entertainer. However, to me, she was like a kid princess. And her, and I would say Sleeping Beauty, the animated movie as well, Princess Aurora, and Cinderella a little bit too. Really, there weren't a lot of those going on before I jumped into the job. So I don't remember having anyone that I said, I want to be that little girl, besides maybe the princesses in movies that I would see. I don't remember exactly when this movie came around. I think this was the 90s, but I loved Willow. I loved Legend. I loved The Princess Bride for sure. I wanted to be Robin Wright Penn. I wanted to be that, whatever, her character. But what got me into contests was watching a grown woman compete in the Miss Texas pageant. And she sang Stand By Your Man, and she was a belter. And I knew that I liked her energy. And then she won the crown. And I'm like, Mom, I want a crown like that. And that's what started my mother being a small town vocal coach, and she had a music degree. So she started just coaching me. She was my first vocal coach, and I was already in dance classes. So we had asked my dance teacher to get us some connections into pageants. And then honestly, I feel like it was really the Mouseketeers around me. Whenever I stepped into my first job, that was when I started seeing similar children to myself and started gathering inspiration in a more diverse way. I mean, in my small town, there just wasn't a lot of that going on. And I'd never gone to a musical. I don't think I'd seen anybody perform in a musical. I just remember those musical movies, Sound of Music, The Wiz, I mean, The Little Mermaid, all the Disney musicals, really. That's where I pulled my first inspiration of, I'd like to be maybe a human being doing those things. But I think for me, it was between the movies and the music videos and all the artists I just named. I wanted to do what they were able to do.
Absolutely. And I love to hear, like, I was watching one of your interviews, and I was also watching the A&E biography on the Mickey Mouse Club. And I love your story about, like, because I was raised in a small town, Wilson, North Carolina, 45 minutes away from Raleigh. And, if you live in a blue collar town like that, having big dreams like that, it's almost like, you're crazy. It's laughable, right? But for you to move to Orlando, Florida, you and your family, just to take that chance, man. I love to hear stuff like that, man, because that's really, really, really brave. What was going through your mind at age 10 when you were making this move?
So there was a lot. There were a lot of firsts and a lot of, is this really happening moments? Because when I was 10, maybe less of the told story is that Matt Casella, who cast all 7 seasons of the Only Mickey Club, and the ones who went into the pilot as well, which is the episode or 2 that they create that may never see the light of day, but they're kind of the audition for the show in and of itself. Matt Casella had originally been casting for a movie called Why? Because We Like You.
Right.
And so when it was about the original Mouseketeers from the 50s. And so when he first encountered me, that was the first audition that I did for him, was to audition for one of those Mouseketeers. And he really saw me as either Doreen or Darlene. If I had a growth spurt, I could have played Darlene, but I think maybe I matched Doreen both in my age range, but also maybe my singing as well. And so I had gone to LA with my mother to audition, to do the final audition and filming for that movie. And I got the part, but then the writer's strike happened in the late 80s, which canceled that production because no one was writing scripts for movies at that time. And so he sent my videotape to the final audition, to the auditions for the new Mickey Mouse Club.
Wow. And
so I just went to the final callback in Orlando, Florida, to audition with most of the Mouseketeers who began the show. Most of them were there. And so I had been sort of kind of on a roller coaster of, I got the part in the movie. Oh, the movie's not happening. Okay, now I'm going to go audition for the TV. Great. And then I'm there, then I'm there.
Wow.
And it was a big contract. It was a contract for 7 years. And, for my little family, from my little town, and me being, all of 10 years old, almost 11, I think it was a big Willy Wonka moment where it was kind of sign away, Charlie, you got nothing to lose. Like, we don't know. I have no idea. I'm too young, or I just wasn't around to remember if my parents, went to a lawyer to get the contract read over. We were, even if they did, I just don't know if we would have made many changes because we weren't living in a show business world. We didn't have things like entertainment lawyers ready. We had not read a contract like that before. So there were so many firsts. So when we signed it, it was very exhilarating. But then something that, you touched on, family is the first team, like in a recording artist's life, in a young artist's life, or a show business, even a child star, just actress life. Your family is your first team, and you learn what works and what doesn't from that first team. And then hopefully you move on to expand your team to, more knowledgeable and professional, not yes people, but authentic, we have your best interest in mind people. And I believe my family very much exemplified someone who had my best interest in mind to keep us together and to not separate us. And so they made a huge sacrifice, and they sold the home that they had built to live out the rest of their lives in. There was a whole section called the mother-in-law suite that they could have closed off most of the rest of the house when they were in retirement age to just live in a smaller portion of the home. And just the fact that they had all this thinking, all this forethought, putting all of this information into this home for their whole life. And then they sold it when I was only 10 years old to come out and be a family together. And I really believe that was one of the best decisions.
Yeah. That was super brave, and that's awesome that you had that support system like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Orlando, Florida. All right. Disney, Epcot Center, Universal Studios, Nickelodeon Studios. This place it was an entertainment mecca around that time. Now, when I always do interviews, I probably like at least all of my, like 5 of my interviews, I've always made reference to Michael Jackson, the first time he moonwalked, and the first time I saw him moonwalk. And as a kid, I didn't realize the significance of that, but I felt a shift in energy. I was like, wow, if the excitement in the air from just that one thing. And I was like, I knew something bigger was about to happen. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to know for you, like when you arrived there and you're a part of this thing and knowing what we know now, did you have a sense that something bigger was going to happen? You know what I mean? Like just looking at the history of it all, like, you know, you went to school with Joey Fatone. Yeah. The people that you end up working with, Rona, she's in Vogue. That's crazy. It's just so many things. Like I think about Jessica Simpson. She almost was cast as a Mouseketeer. Nick Carter, he was almost a Mouseketeer. He had to choose between that and the Backstreet Boys. All of this stuff. Did you have a sense like, oh, something big is about to happen?
I don't think that I could see past my own personal excitement and enjoyment. Right. I had no concept of what a pilot meant or what that took. I had no concept of how many amazing children were together and how magical that would be for our fans to have all of us there together in all of the ways that we would fit together, but also show diversity by being different but the same. I had no concept of that. And for the record, I honestly, I don't even know I still don't know what I made each year. I know that I made money. I have no idea what those checks were. So for me, I just know because of those context clues, I was really hyper focused on the material and singing and dancing and acting in new ways. These are higher levels of excellence and attention to detail than what I had ever experienced on my own, working through things. If my mother and I were super specific on a song, it's like Disney took all of those concepts to a bigger level. Getting into the recording studio and performing and being instructed, like you had a whole team back then, right, behind the glass of a big studio, and I'm in the Foley stage, right? Like, I don't think that building even exists anymore. I had the honor of going back into there a few years ago, and it smelled exactly the same, and it started to make me cry because that was really my favorite room. Was the Foley stage when we would record most of our songs. I think everything but maybe the MMC album was recorded there. In my whole history of being there, and then when you put in all of that amazing dance rehearsal and all the vocal rehearsals and then getting it recorded at the stage at post-production, and then you have your dressing rooms and then going to and from all of the things, and then your schoolroom, which is so different and interesting. And then you throw us into the park with full access to the park. And then you throw in tourists who are coming in sometimes through these windows, like the Foley stage. I'm singing here and there are people like walking by, like looking at me and waving, and I'm pouring my heart out into a song. And then I'm like, oh, hi. It was a very fishbowl element, right? Like we're just swimming around and just, trying to live our lives. And then you've got, that element. And then you're doing half of your work in front of the camera, in front of a live studio audience. And then there comes a time where people say, hey, I saw you on that show. Remember that time you did the thing? And I'm like, I do remember that time I did the thing. And this is what was going on with me when I was doing that. And they're like, that was so crazy. And there's just so many layers that I was just focused on what was right in front of me, the task at hand and the people in front of me and those interactions. We didn't realize to a certain extent how big the show had been, or especially how impactful, how personally helpful it was to so many young people. Yeah. Because it was a paid channel. I mean, I know now we're in a world of subscription apps, but it felt almost like, I didn't have the Disney Channel until I got on the show. So I didn't assume that most people had it.
Oh my gosh.
Things like that,
Right. Just to tell you a personal story from me with the Mickey Mouse Club, my best friend Juan, who I've been best friends with since the third grade. Can you say hey to Juan for me, please?
Hey, Juan.
Yes, thank you so much. So it's like, man, have you seen the Mickey Mouse Club? I'm like, the Mickey Mouse Club. I'm like, the with the ears, and I said, no, I haven't. And he says, so I went over his house to watch it, and he's like, who's the leader of the club? And I said, okay, this is. But then it goes, hey, in the high and the ho. It has a very gospel cadence, that theme song, and I just remember from that point on, I was just hooked. All the girls were cute. The dancing performances were amazing. They had, you guys had Letterman jackets. I mean, it was so cool. And I gotta thank Juan for that, man, because if it wasn't for him, because the Disney Channel, people don't understand, like the Disney Channel, like you just said, it was like, I think it was not a part of the basic cable subscription. So back in the day, I think it was like $25 or something like that. And I certainly didn't have it. And it was a real big deal, like when we would have the free trial.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I
material for the free trial days. I do remember that.
Oh my gosh. I remember like I was so excited that I had the free trial. And then like on Friday, I was like, oh crap, it's party day. I'm about to watch it. And I get home and right in the middle of party day, wavy line, wavy line, wavy line. And I was like, no. Yeah. Oh my God. It was I had tears going down my eyes. It was terrible. But yeah, I mean, like that show, it really changed everything for me. I thought, like I said, I thought all the girls are cute. I really had a big crush on Dee Dee, and it was just crazy.
Gorgeous. She and she still is. I think honestly, if you polled the audience, it would be kind of the Tiffany, Dee Dee, Brandy, like, I would say both very beginning. I mean, I was teeny tiny, and that wasn't even on my radar, but when you go back and you look, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like across the board, like everybody was so cute, and we were all very real kids. I mean, I've watched enough back the behind the scenes footage now that it was chaos in the beginning. Like, as you had all of us who were chaotic in our tween energy, and then you had our brothers and sisters who were there, and the parents, and like I even saw footage of my mother helping everyone teach school in the school trailer, because she was a teacher, and so like everybody was just pitching in, and we really were set up in the beginning, at least from my perspective, and the way that I held on to that first template throughout the whole set of seasons. We were set up to be a family, like one big crazy chaotic family. And so I never let that go. And it took me really until this year or last year, watching all those tapes, to put that together. This is why I see everyone like that. This is why, even if I haven't spoken to one of us in decades, even, they're still a sister or brother. And that's why, because that's how our production trained us in the very beginning. And it stuck for me, for sure.
And I'm just watching the documentaries. It was like it was a real grind. I want people to understand that. It's like, it was a real grind. You went to school, you had to maintain a certain grade point average. It was like fame, and fame cost. It was the real thing.
Yeah. Yes.
So I want people kids to understand that. Like back in the day, it was like you had to go out for auditions. And it was a real grind. It's not like how it is now, where like if you got a camera, a camera phone, you could just put stuff on YouTube. It wasn't like that. It was a real grind to be on Disney. Like, to be recruited for the Mickey Mouse Club, you had to be a triple threat. And if you weren't a triple threat, you were going to learn these different aspects of entertainment, right?
That's right. We were constantly learning. And I'm a good example, because I really had not come from any professional gig. I had not had a previous job.
Right.
And so I was stage trained, but this was television. And so, I mean, just the script alone, right? This was, let's say, and every year was a little different, but let's say you'd get the first draft of the script, and most of it, let's say, was white pages. And then your first script reading, and they'd probably give you a second version that had green pages and yellow pages and pink pages in it. And it would say, where 34 through 49 existed, now it's just one page that says 34 through 39A. And so they completely took out a section, and they would change the color of the pages each time they would make a rewrite to a part of your script. Now imagine my script with all those different colored pieces of paper, and times like 20 or 30 people, and they're changing. That's how much paper we used just to get to the end of the week of rehearsal and have just all the colors of the rainbow in our script, having to make change after change after change. And then the next week, when you tape everything that you just rehearsed the week before, okay, you have your script, but then as you've memorized it, now they're going to block it and make changes the day of. And your intros and outros, right? Your intros and outros change a little bit. And they have an acting coach that helps you remember the line, or the director can speak over the intercom and help you remember your line. But there were no cue cards. And so imagine how our brains were trained to absorb and spit it out, absorb and spit it out. Now retain it. Now we're going to change it, retain that, just in the comedic stuff alone. And then you have your costume try-ons and your fittings, and then you have your hair and makeup. And if it's just you're a normal person, that's fine, but then you still have to go through, they fix your hair, they do your makeup, you have your normal clothing, but they've picked out your accessories and your shoes and all the things, but if it's a costume, which, anyone who's a fan and remembers kind of how I was on the show, I definitely went through a lot of costumes and
right. Yeah.
All the fittings for that, is this costume coming from the props department? Where are your props? Have you worked on your props? It's all comedic timing. So, that's just, and I barely really ever talk about the acting, but one of my favorite pieces was our comedic acting and all of the kind of, I would say, pomp and circumstance that comes with parading out a costume to the live audience, or parading out all your props, or having food fights for the first time and then having to reset. Right. And then you have to go get into another costume, which looks just the same as the other one before you threw food all over. It is a grind. And that's just our script. You have listening on your cassette tape to the songs that you're working on for the next, month or 2 weeks. And then you have your vocal rehearsals for that. And then you go in and you record everything. And then you have to get the recording back so that you can practice lip syncing to yourself. And then you put your dancing and your vocals together. And then you do it in front of a live audience, and you're wearing costume and hair and makeup, and you do it 5 times at least. And every time you have to go get unsweaty. People have to dab your face and make sure everything, and all the while you're in front of an audience and you're huffing and puffing. And I worked so hard on my dancing because that was my weakest link. And I was just watching, it's a song called Sing, 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 I think.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
The tap dance. In the very beginning, we were more parallel with the spirit of the musical theater and more classical dance styles, like what the original Mouseketeers would have gone through, like Tiffany with her ballet, and all the tap dancing and all of that. And we would infuse, of course, the jazz, and then over time, more hip hop, etc. But there was a set of us who were tap dancers, and I was always, the weakest link in all of that. But we would even record, I think, Chase and maybe Tiffany. I know, especially for Little Shop of Horrors, it was probably Chase, Tiffany, and Kevin who recorded our tap sounds. But you would go back to that Foley stage, and stages are fully equipped to do sound effects for movies. They're set up for that. And so they'd go there and they would do their little tap sounds on the appropriate floor, and they would record it. And that was also in our music, for something like that. But Sing, I don't know if we were tapping, but we had character shoes on, and I would jump down off a square, like some cube, and then spin around and then go right into this other direction, just with everybody else. And I was I kind of fell in love with myself all over again, seeing this little girl just working her butt off to keep up with everybody else. And to me, that's the spirit of what that show meant, not just to me, but to everyone who emulated what we did. There were people who decided to go into the business because they would memorize all the moves, or people went into styling because they really enjoyed what we wore, and they started trying to find pieces like that for themselves. And, they wanted to go into teaching or whatever, because they saw that they could make an impact, and maybe they could be a part of, child performers and how we did it. And all the while, I just love it that they felt like we were all family and that we were all friends, because that was a big part of why we were chosen, because we were relatable, and I've been more grateful about my level of being relatable more and more over the years, because if you asked me back then, I was goofy and I weighed too much. And now I say, you know what? I was a template for girls who looked just like me to tell them that they can still be celebrated, that, you know, what they outside, like, sure, it, you know, you want to be healthy, but like you're 12 or you're 15 or you're 22. Like, this is how God made you. You need to celebrate that, and you can accomplish much just as I did, you know, and you can love it while you're doing that. And and being so goofy, I feel that I'm much more connected to that flavor and allowing myself to laugh and to be funny. I found it again. You know, maybe about 10 years ago, I found that again, because for so long, I think I had tried to be not goofy, and I tried to change myself because I wanted to be like the cool kids.
Yeah.
Cool. But all that to say, you know, everybody goes through their struggles, but I love it that I was able to, and those kids were able to make other people feel safer and better about themselves and not alone. That was huge. But also to inspire those dreams of music and entertainment, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Just to ask you, there's a rumor, like I said, I mentioned Nick Carter and Jessica Simpson, but there was a rumor that Beyonce tried out for the Mickey Mouse Club. Is that true or no?
I've never talked to Matt Casella about that, and I don't remember a conversation about that. So I would say, if it were just from my perspective, that that's not true.
Okay.
But I mean, Beyonce, come on now, like that was. I mean, she's so, I mean, I know she's so much further than just saying she's a triple threat now, but that would, you know, that would have been fabulous. But no, I don't remember that. I do remember Jessica Simpson. I didn't know about Nick Carter growing up either. So I could be totally wrong about Beyonce, but if they don't speak out about it publicly, then like, how do we know? How do we know what 18,000 auditions they went on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just want to, just to paint a picture too, like back in that time, Disney was like a precious commodity. It's not like the juggernaut it is now. It was always powerful, but like for people like myself, like if in order to watch something that was Disney, it wasn't just on TV. It's like you either had to go to the movies to watch it, or you wait for it to come out on VHS. That costs money. You know what I'm saying? And you better get it then, because if you don't get it then, it's going to go into the Disney vault. You know what I mean? If you're really lucky, you could be there be at home on Sunday night at 7:00 and watch The Wonderful World of Disney. You know what I'm saying? And even that was a mixed bag, because you didn't know what you were going to get unless you had a TV guide, you know? So it kills me when I hear young people say, "Oh, I'm bored." I'm like, you're bored? Dude, I didn't have Netflix. I didn't have all this stuff that they have now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's so incredible to see how far the Disney brand had, you know, come, you know, especially recently. I think there was a D23 Expo. Were you a part of that?
I wasn't able to go. I'm president of an artist development company, and we had an event in West Virginia at a college.
Nice.
And I wasn't able to get away from it because I was an integral part of that event, and it had already been scheduled. So I couldn't make it.
Well, congratulations on that. And also, I just want to know your opinion about, you know, there's this, you know, a new live action Little Mermaid. And did you see the trailer for it?
I haven't yet.
You haven't? Oh my gosh. Man.
I'm just getting over Thor being on Disney Plus right now. Like, I'm just
Thor.
Just coming out of like seeing Natalie Portman's guns and everything, and just So no, I haven't moved on to Ariel yet. So what is that? Tell me about it.
Well, it's live action, and you know, have you heard of Haley Bailey? I might be saying her name wrong. She's a singer. It's like Haley and Chloe.
Oh, I've heard of Haley and Chloe, but just by name.
Okay. Well, she's playing Ariel now. And so, you know, she's African American. You know how, you know, a lot of people not, you know, for that, but she has an amazing voice. And to me, it's like, okay, she's a mermaid. It doesn't matter.
The spirit of Ariel. And I don't even remember, like, when I saw the original animated movie from Disney, and I know King Triton had all of these daughters. And I know, I mean, maybe they all looked a little different, but maybe they all looked like him in his skin. I don't remember. But I mean, I think that it's in the culture and in the way that we all are moving towards. I think it's very appropriate to open our minds to why does a mermaid have to be a pink mermaid? Like, why is that the case? And, I think the spirit of Ariel and her adventure and her, in a way, like her youth and her blind love, where she makes such a difficult choice to try to be with her prince, to give up your voice, what I'm saying? All I'm saying is I wouldn't give up my voice for a prince. So just saying, like, it's a hard choice, but it's like, why would we keep Ariel in the box that we had her in before? I think that in the spirit of the Mickey Mouse Club as well, diversity was a huge central part of what we represented. So I love stuff like that, I again, like, I would have to see Ariel. I would have more of an issue on if she doesn't look I can't imagine what real shells are going to look like on a young person, like, I would be worried about how old is she? Are we sending the right message about body image? Like, what are these shells? Are they appropriate for a minor? Like, that's where I would get, it's wardrobe for me. And the versus
no shells. It's a wrap. It's like a body wrap. So that's good. She's a mermaid. I mean, as long as she's able to sing and act, that's all I care about. You know what I mean? And my whole
right person for the role. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
She has a gorgeous voice. But just to go back to like because I watched a lot of the interviews, and usually when people interview a Mouseketeer, they make reference to like the breakout stars, right? And we'll talk about those people and everything, but I want to talk about people who, like, to me, doesn't get enough shine, like yourself. And I want to talk about, like, Albert and Chase and Tiffany and Dee Dee and Lindsay. Like, I mean, like, what can you say about those people, man? I mean, those OG people, the OGs.
The OGs are my most treasured family from the show, because they were who I made my first memories with. Dee Dee was my first dressing room mate. And I remember moments of us playing with the phone in our dressing room. And I remember, Lindsay was the first person to have a birthday while we were taping, and they brought Mickey Mouse to see her, and she turned 11, and I'd already turned 11 at that point. And I don't think it was there, while we were taping. And, Albert, I was really separated from him once the party started. I didn't have a lot of access to him. So I had been super curious about many of them through the years, when it was before social media was big, and we hadn't really if we weren't living in the same big town like LA or New York, I didn't know what everyone was doing. But so I had been really super curious about Albert for a long time. And now, like, every time I see him, he's honestly probably the most loving brother. Him and Chase are the most loving brothers to me. And Albert has one of the biggest and softest hearts that I've ever met. And that's saying a lot, because Dee Dee has one of the biggest, softest hearts that I've ever met. You can kind of go on and on with that. So many. And, Lindsay and I would sort of be ships passing in the night when it came to New York, because I was finishing college when she was coming through. And, but I remember a few years ago, before MMC 30, I had the pleasure of visiting Brandy in her home. And when we sat down and talked, that was the first conversation we had ever had as an adult. And it was just life-changing, because you have these remembrances of these children who, at the time, we weren't children, we were peers. It was just where we were in our life. And these were the kids that I looked up to and wanted to be like. And so when you speak to them now and see how tender they are and how loving we are all to each other, it's sort of this interesting familial completion for me, that now we all love each other, and it's now, right? So long ago. And it's been since the time I probably set foot in on property for the first time, for the first audition, it's been 35 or 34 years since I started that journey with those kids. And so to imagine that now, after all these years, we are still, in my perspective and in many of our perspectives, brother and sister, is super impactful for me. And to see how we all turned out, and to see some similarities between us, how we're still all perfectionists, you know, how we want to do such an amazing job for our fans. Like, we care so much, and we're all so much harder on ourselves. And then, of course, the fan perspective is like, you guys were nuts out there. It was amazing. And we're like, well, you know, I missed this one note. I missed that one dance move, you know. So yeah, like, I looked up to all of them so much. And I will always remember, my favorite memory of Tiffany was actually right in the beginning. She was and I've seen it in some of our tapes that I've watched recently. She wanted to take care of people. She, like, if Lindsay was falling behind, she'd stay with her. And with me, we were, before everyone arrived at our apartment complex, when I think we were starting the real show. I don't think it was the pilot. I think it's when we were starting the first season. It was either the beginning of the pilot or the beginning of the first season, but it was the quiet before the storm, because not everyone had arrived. Not all the chaos had begun. And she and I just sat out, like, kind of at the foot of the stairs. There was this opening out to kind of a swampy area back there, and very, very typical of Orlando apartments and houses and stuff. And we sat there with our knees crossed, like our legs crossed, and we found frogs, and we balanced them on our knees. And it was this weird Zen one with the frogs moment. And it was so odd, which was very me. And I loved it that she was just down for that, like, to just sit there with Jennifer and enjoy the quiet and the nature, and to just be with me. Because really, after that, she was kind of swept up with some of the older girls, you know. But that, to me, was like our moment, just a really sweet, quiet moment with nobody else. And I don't know why that sticks out to me so much. I'm sure I had that with others, but I think maybe because she's not here with us anymore in the physical world, I hang on to that one moment that we had together that was so quietly impactful for me.
Yes. I remember, I think, you did an interview with Mylan and Dee Dee, and and that was a great interview. That was so much fun to listen to. And I remember Dee Dee saying, like, you know, Tiffany had a motherly type of spirit, you know. And oh gosh, man, goodness. So I have a very, I can't believe I skipped this question, because it's like one of my most important questions I ask all of my guests. What was your favorite cereal growing up, and what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Okay, so my favorite cereal was Fruit Loops, but we weren't allowed to have it at home. So I would get it at, like, other people's houses, or go to the family reunion. Sometimes they have it there. Or you get it at school, like in the little box.
Little bowls, yeah. Oh, so, wow.
That's anywhere I could get. Now, of course, when I got on the Mickey Mouse Club, all that stuff was everywhere, which is part of why I struggled with my weight for a minute, because they had all the things I was never allowed to have before at craft services. And so I would get these cups of M&Ms and Fruit Loops and, I don't know, Fritos, whatever I had. And I would just go, like, hide in the dressing room and be like, lunch, like, this is so I was a little snacky because it was like, in a way, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, like the whole come with me, and like everything was everything that my wildest dreams had imagined that I couldn't have, I was able to have it there.
Yeah.
But then my favorite Saturday morning cartoon was Dungeons and Dragons.
Really? Wow.
I thought it was fantastically crazy that these people get on a ride in a roller coaster.
Yeah.
They get, like, transformed through a portal, and there's, like, a wizard, and there was this girl that was like a warrior with, like, a staff, and, like, she had, and I really think that was, I mean, it was either the princesses or the warrior princesses that I just thought were the coolest people. And, like, and so she was, like, just just a warrior, I guess, like just a warrior, like that's not enough, but like I just loved seeing those characters. I don't even remember anything that happened on the show. It was the opening that got me.
The opening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I love role too, and I'm like, maybe that'll happen to me. So yeah, I loved that. I also loved the Care Bears a lot. I loved that one. Rainbow Bright was but if I had to pick one, I would totally want to watch again and just sort of remember Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't remember anybody knowing that cartoon.
That's why I was like, wow, I can't believe you said that. Because like a lot of people would say, oh, Thundercats, but that really wasn't Saturday morning. But like, you know, Rainbow Bright, like you said. But when you said Dungeons and Dragons, like, wow, she remembers that. I remember and it's, going back to the interview that you had with Dee Dee Mylin, and you made a Care Bear reference. You said Care Bear stare. I thought that was so cool.
I mean, think about it. Like that's just magical. That like when you think about that in a spiritual sense, that you know the core of where we feel is right there in the middle. Like our core, if you feel hard enough, or if you project the power from within you forward, and especially in a group of you, right? You can like conquer stuff. And then I remember Dave Chappelle did a bit about it, and I'm like, Dave Chappelle killing it with the Care Bear stare, you know. So I did, like I had Care Bears and I had Rainbow Bright dolls, and I did like the Smurfs, but you know, everyone knows what the Smurfs are. That wasn't something that I just held on to as much as, yeah. And like, do you remember Pole Position? I don't remember anything about it, except that there was an animal on it, and I think its name was Kuma, and I named my first cat Kuma.
Wow.
From that animal, whatever that was. Yeah. How can I remember just one segment and not, I can't remember the show.
No, it be like, it is like that, because like, I remember there's this cartoon called Turbo Team, and Turbo Team would turn into a freaking Corvette every time he gets wet. And I remember like him transforming into the car was really creepy. I mean, it was really horrifying, but it's Turbo Teen. I remember, like, you know, I was really into, like, of course, Transformers and He-Man and stuff like that. But there was a cartoon called Bionic 6. I thought that was fantastic. I wanted to ask you too. Were you? It's gonna sound really strange. Nickelodeon Studios premiered around 1990. Were you guys allowed to go over there, or was it a thing of like, you must never go over there? You know.
For sure. I mean, I don't remember anybody telling us not to go over there. I mean, at the time that was premiering, I wasn't able to drive yet.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to go anywhere anyway and visit out in, you know, of my own choice. And I might have gone over there, but I did make friends like later in life. You know, Melissa Joan Hart and I had a few conversations.
Cool.
I had spoofed her on the new Mickey Mouse Club. I played Clarissa Explains It All, but I can't remember what they changed my name to.
Wow.
And that was an honor because I loved that show.
Oh yeah.
I you know, I've been friends with Sean O'Neill. It was after the fact. I don't know if I really talked to any of them during the tapings, but I remember I was around them enough somewhere in high school, you know, that we built some friendships. And then I saw Melissa a little while later while I was in college in New York. You know, it was just, you know, really just small moments there. But I mean, one of my favorite shows was You Can't Do That on Television.
Yes.
And my mother didn't want me to watch it because she being a grade school teacher, she didn't like that you got punished for saying that you didn't know.
Right.
And I'm like, Mom, you know, because it's, we're not thinking along those lines of that. I mean, I get what she was saying about, I guess, negative reinforcement or whatever, but we all just wanted to see people get slimed, you know, of course.
Wow.
That was so, but I never met any of that cast. I did have the pleasure of singing on the same stage at the same event as Alanis, but she was just Alanis in Canada.
What?
Made her debut with Jagged Little Pill in America and of course worldwide. She was just Alanis as an artist name, and we the MMC soloists sang at the Niagara Falls Canadian side on a stage built out for the ringing in of the new year that year. So that was probably into 1995. That was probably 94 into 95 that we rang in the new year in Canada. And she was part of that, the group, not us, but she was a part of the performance list, the roster for that show. And it was televised. And I have her, I have footage somewhere of her being like in the lineup with the rest of us. And it's like, thank you to Alanis, thank you to MMC for coming. And we're all like, bye. And
wow.
no one had any idea what was going on next to us or what was going to happen.
That's crazy. Because that album, I had that album. I love that album. That was such a great album.
That was very definitive, for me. When I fast forward into right after I graduated from college, I briefly was working with Capitol Records on a record deal. And, they'd had a lot. I mean, we were basically coming into the bubblegum pop era. Like it was all of that. And I had been sort of primed to be an Alanis Morissette in my mind. I wanted to be like a gospel rocker. Like I wanted to be Whitney and Alanis all rolled into one. And I loved the Lenny Kravitz, like I Want to Get Away song.
Yeah.
And all that. And so, and the record label was kind of like, huh? What? That's not what? And so it just turned out that I was too like heady and like tall and older, and everything I wanted to do was deeper and darker than what they were moving towards at the time. So it wasn't going to work out. But like, I mean, Alanis Morissette's, that particular album was a huge inspiration for me and kind of everything that I listened to years in college.
Yeah, I mean, you said college. I looked it up by NYU Notebook right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Yeah. Congratulations on that. My homeboy, he graduated from NYU. Shout out to Jermaine, and he gave me that as a gift. I have one chance to have a FaceTime conversation with your 12-year-old self. But here's the only thing. It's like you only have 1 minute to say whatever you need to say. And what you say to your 12-year-old self can affect your future. So what would you say to your 12-year-old self if you had an opportunity to have that 1 minute conversation?
I would say some surprising things to her that would probably scare her. But of course, this is, if I'm trying to alter, if I'm trying to maybe heal some regrets that I had at that age, I would tell her that not to listen to anybody about any negative comments about what you look like, that you are a treasure inside and out, and that everything that is in your power has nothing to do with the shape of your body. It has every heart and your soul and the talent that God gave you. I would say treasure your mother, and both of you start exercising ASAP. Get your eating right now, because you're going to be a good influence on your mom as well as everybody else in your life. And you are going to have a healthier existence and maybe a longer life because of that. And make sure that your value is not compromised because you're afraid to give yourself permission to be as valuable as you are. So yeah, and buy property right away. Yeah.
and invest in Amazon and Apple.
Invest your money. Yeah, buy property right away. Take care of your body and take care of your mother. I mean, that's
absolutely
what it is.
How did 2020 change you?
I actually have a lot of good report about that, and it's hard to talk about it without, of course, saying for the record that I would never have wished COVID on our world, and I did not lose a family member or a loved one to COVID, and so I can't connect to how that could trump someone's effect as far as what COVID did to their life. I have to say, I don't know that trauma, so I can't speak to that part of it. Because I have always been a silver lining person. I want to see the best in people, and I always try to say yes to things. I found myself right before COVID, and not understanding at the time, but I found myself kind of in this rotation of obligation. And I was able, through the time of COVID where we were isolated, to reevaluate what I wanted to add back into my life.
Okay.
And I got rid of things that, when I look back on it now, were a lot of things I was doing for free, or that were because someone asked me to do it, that were overtaxing me. It felt like I was burning out. It felt like I was burning out. So I was able to push the reset button and really explore the things that I wanted to do with my life. I did get more family time. I did, I did get to do that. I am actually an introvert, so I got to work from home, and I realized how much I love working from home. I love events. I love going to events, but day to day, I really love being able to be here with my dog, to make my lunch from my home, to walk my dog, to not have to deal with doggy care, or, to have students come over, but also to do a lot of business online, to take a break if I need to come back to. I mean, all of that stuff now is very precious to me. And I didn't realize how well and how fast I would work in that type of environment. And so that was a new discovery. And really, I did change a lot. I discovered my value. I discovered some changes in relationships I need to make.
Yes.
I needed to have made. And I did that, and I redrew my boundaries. And since all of those changes, I'm so much happier and wiser, and I'm toxic free, and I am drama free. And I can't believe that might not have ever happened had I not gone through that time of isolation. I don't think that actually God and I got any differently close. I think that if anything, I just had more quiet time to be able to have that special time. But I think in a way, with all the less extra things, I think I was maybe just able to spend more time in that, or it was a deeper, quicker access point to God. So that's very interesting too. But I think everyone considered their mortality in a different way during that time.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I do magnified my connection.
Absolutely. And just want to say this whole podcast is about giving a person their flowers. And I want to say thank you for being a part of my childhood. And thank you for just making amazing music. I listened to your album, Unbreakable, and I can hear the inspiration because of Celine, and got a touch of Whitney in there. You got a really strong, powerful voice, and I really enjoy it. It's a great album, nice worship album, and I just keep on doing what you're doing. How can folks reach you?
You can find me in all of my facets through jennifermcgill.com. Through there, you can find all my social media. There is an interviews playlist, so you can find that on my YouTube.
Nice.
And then, if you like Instagram, that's normally where I hang out. So if you really want to connect, Instagram is where I go. And on Instagram, there's a link tree, a link in my profile, where any interviews I have or any events and tickets and things, you can find them on there on a list. So that's really the best way to get in touch with me. And if you do have a friend or parent friends who have a young teen who is interested in artist development, who's interested in doing some of the stuff I've talked about getting into when I was that age, I am president of an artist development company. It's called PCG Artist Development. And
nice.
You can search that. I'm going to start putting more access to that on my socials. But for now, the address is in my bio description on my Instagram, but it's pcgartistdevelopment.com. And I'm a point of contact if you're interested in, possibly getting your kid a little bit more of an expanded team, or if you're, slightly older, you're thinking about college and you're like, do I need to go to college to be an artist? No,
right.
You can. But no, there's no gate that you're going to open with a college degree unless you're going somewhere to like NYU and they offer you a showcase that lets, the Broadway community see you. If it's something like that, sure. If they have a gateway into the business, that's awesome. But 9 times out of 10, what we do as a preparatory company is more on trend and up to the minute training with people who've won awards and written for all the big celebrities and who have connections with major record labels. So I really love this company because it really connects me back to serving in ways that I would have wanted to be served when I was in that young place, learning the business for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been fun it's been a lot of fun and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course. I really appreciate being here too. Thanks for all the awesome questions. Those were great.
Thank you.
I never got to talk about Fruit Loops before or
yes.
So yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Ciao.